business for over 40 years is we still don't have a bona fide training and development system for direct support professionals. We need a system where people who want to do this work professionally can get trained, learn about disabilities, learn about behavioral services, and be properly compensated when they come into the system. And that has just never happened. I thought by now in my career that I would see some improvement in that area. One of the things that really galls me is the people who work in the developmental centers, which serve so few people, they make a pretty good salary. But the people taking care of similar individuals in the community make 1/3 less, often with not nearly the benefit package. That's a real, I think, amoral thing for the state of California. We really ought to be able to direct those resources to you folks in this room and the people that do support them. So that's my presentation. I hope you have a little bit better understanding of why we have a Lanolin Act, why we have regional centers, and most importantly, what or how your individual program plan is going to keep them there. That's a very good question. I wish somebody was here from the regional center to respond to that. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, you probably remember back in the 70s when they closed a lot of the institutions and a lot of the folks were just kind of put out on the street that had no place to go.
Those were primarily mental health institutions.
Right.
And that is one of the reasons there's been reluctance to close all the developmental centers, because like Camarillo State Hospital I mentioned earlier was primarily built for the mentally ill from Los Angeles County. At one time in 1957, Camarillo State Hospital had 7,000 residents. The city of Camarillo didn't even exist. There was nothing but a little white spot on the 101 freeway. But in the 60s, that's one of the things that Ronald Reagan did that I think is kind of a blemish on his record. He started closing all the mental hospitals, and the funding never followed them into the community. And that's why we have so much homelessness, so many problems with people with mental illness who get into trouble with the law. You know what the largest institution for the mentally ill in California is today? County jails. It's estimated that as much as 1/3 of all people who are housed in county jails are mentally ill. I have a son, my youngest son, has a mental illness. He had a break when he was about 20 years old, so I do a lot of volunteer work in that community. Mental health services have improved pretty dramatically since the millionaires tax about 8 years ago. You remember that? The 1% tax on millionaires? And that bill passed. It was the only initiative that passed since before 30, was because of the homelessness and people sleeping in storefronts. Business, the Chamber of Commerce got behind that bill, and even the wealthy supported it. So the developmentally disabled is a little bit different than the massive discharge in the 60s of the mentally ill. That was a horrible public policy decision. A lot of people died, were not well taken care of. And that's simply because the money did not go to support the community services. And I think the advocacy network in the developmental disabilities community has always been a lot stronger than the mental health advocacy network. We have ARC California, we have the California Disability Services Association, we have United Cerebral Palsy up there in Sacramento all the time. And anytime somebody messes with the Lanolin Act, we descend on those people. One of the things I'm thinking about doing when I retire is to become a registered lobbyist and spend more time in Sacramento working on behalf of legislative issues for people with developmental disabilities as well as the mentally ill.
Well, my former mother-in-law worked at Napa State Hospital for years. And on occasion I had visited her there. And you could see that there was a lot of people living there that should not have been there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, when I talk earlier about putting people in institutions. I mean, it was not people with severe disabilities at all.
Right.
I remember one of the first people I worked with at Pacific was when you're new, they give you the star clients, and so they gave me Marjorie. So I went to meet Marjorie, and Marjorie had gone to the 8th grade in school, and I asked somebody, I said, well, why is she here? So, well, she has grand mal seizures, and they're very, very hard seizures. I said, well, when was the last time she had one? It had been like 2 years. And Marjorie did the laundry, she did the ironing, she took care of the low grades. And, you know, and I was pretty upset when I read her story. So I contacted her mother and I said, you know, why don't you at least let us put her in a family care home, group home in the community? Her mother said, absolutely not. She will stay there until she dies. Mm-hmm. And those were just horrible, you know, wasted lives, basically. And thousands of them. Anything else, folks?
Just going to share, our family moved to California because of the Atlanta and the Hope preschool program in San Jose. It was the reason our family moved from another state that had state institutions. And then I've been doing supported living for about 20 years, and thinking of the people over the years that have come in and out of our program who at one time had been in the state institutions. It's really shocking to me. I did have one question, though, about when someone wants something on their IPP and the service coordinator says, no, we don't do that anymore. How do we support, and how can folks support themselves in saying, yes, I can ask for this and it can be on my IPP?
Well, that's where push comes to shove.
Okay.
And that's the part of the story that often doesn't work well. And you simply have to stand up and say to the service coordinator, I disagree with you. I want this included as part of my individual program plan. If you won't do it, then I want it taken to your supervisor, and if necessary, I'll take it to the director and to the board. You have that right. Now, is it easy? No. Is it easy to stand up to the regional center and say that? No. But you have it in the law. And I think when I worked at the regional center, and the regional center are full of good people primarily, they want to do the right thing too. And you need to try to get them to get on your side and say, hey, you know, you got into this business to move people along with developmental disabilities. It's time you help me and my son or the person I support enjoy life's freedoms and opportunities like the rest of us do. See, the big mistake that we've made with people with disabilities where they're mentally ill or developmentally disabled is we treat them differently based on a social stigma. And all we need to do is accept that they're American citizens like everybody else and entitled to full constitutional privileges. And if we can treat them with that understanding, that